you all tonight, and I want to thank Dennis and Jane for this wonderful opportunity. I have been an elementary school teacher for a little over 13 years, and more recently I have been involved with the administrative aspect of the school system. About 10 years ago, my family and I started a children's choir that eventually became the youth choir that we have at Capistrano de Jesus, the one that I direct. As well as being a teacher and the director of the children's choir or youth choir, I'm also the co-founder of the Capistrano Community Mariachi Program, which is a non-profit music organization focusing on Mexican culture and heritage through the education of mariachi music. So here I am today, and I want to share with you how God has influenced my life and how He continues to motivate me and strengthen my faith through my involvement in my community. Well, after almost 14 years in education, each day I continue thanking God for putting me in my profession as a teacher. It isn't easy. Each day I face many challenges. Sometimes I have to make decisions that go, against the norms. Sometimes I have to work a little harder, stay a little longer, teach a little different, smile a little more to make a difference in my children's, my students' life. And so every day I ask God not to allow me to ignore the needs of others, even when things get difficult or it seems like I don't have the time. So based on all my experiences in life, I have learned to trust God. So let me tell you a story. One Sunday after coming from Mass with my family, our 3 children, David, Carmen, and Christy, came up to us and told us, "We don't want to go to Mass anymore. We're done with it." And we asked, "Well, why?" Because we're so bored. It's boring sitting there for an hour, and we just don't want to go anymore. And so we asked, "Well, what can we do about it?" And Christy, our youngest, she's 9 years old at that time, she said, "Well, Mom, Dad, I think we should start a children's choir." And she said that participating in the choir would help children like herself enjoy the Mass better. The children need to be more active in Mass to enjoy it, she said. Those were her words. And she said that we should start with the Hispanic community. At that time we were going to St. Kilde's at Mission Viejo, but she said the Hispanic community. So she had it all planned in her mind. This was a 9-year-old. The other 2, David and Carmen, agreed with her. Well, perhaps Carmen not so much, because eventually she was volunteered to become the director of the choir at the age of 12. The fact is that I realized that perhaps they were right. A children's choir may indeed help children stay more active in Mass and listen better. So I didn't know where all this was going, so I knew though that I have to keep an open mind. So then I said, "Okay, so how do we do this?" And Christy, again, the 9-year-old, took lead and said, "Well, Carmen and I can play the violin, and David can play the bass, and you, Mom, you can play the guitar." And I laughed. "Excuse me, mijita, I don't play the guitar. I don't know how to play a single instrument. What are you talking about?" And David came up and said, "Oh, Mom, don't worry about it. I will teach you." "Oh, okay. Well, he was the oldest, and he may be able to, teach you how to play the guitar." Then again, he was only 13, a teenager. So I turned to see my husband in disbelief, and then he too said, "And I will take care of the sound system." I didn't know what to do. I looked at them, and then I looked at him, and I realized that they were really serious. They really did want to help the children, go through, the trouble of going to Mass. And they thought that it would be a good idea to start the children's choir. So then I decided to trust God, to trust my husband, to trust my children, and again, more than anything, Him. So I placed myself in my son's tutorial. My 13-year-old son, David, would teach me how to play the guitar. I began my first lesson that day. And in the other side of the room, I heard Alex, my husband, say, "Okay, let me call the churches around here to see who needs a choir." I go, "Yeah, right." But it all happened so quickly. About a month or two later, I find myself on a Sunday morning, 5:30 in the morning, cramming in my guitar, strum by strum, learning the songs to play at the 11:30 Mass that day at Santa Fe de Jesus. Father John Bradley was going to make his decision on whether or not to allow us to play or to have the children's choir only after hearing us play. No pressure. When the Mass was over, something happened. A, he really liked us, or B, he felt really sorry for us. The fact is that he allowed us to play as a family for every Sunday Mass. A year later, we started the San Felipe de Jesus Children's Choir, and it was a choir with over 30 children. And for years, Sunday after Sunday, I continued getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, cramming in my guitar, learning those songs, and each week David would have me learn new chords and new chords each time. It was crazy. Years went by, and the choir kids got older. So then we had the children's choir, and we had the youth choir, and that's the choir that I have now. As I look back, I think that what made attractive to my children, working with the choir, was the fact that they had the liberty of trying new rhythms and making arrangements for the songs that we played inside the church. Carmen and Christy loved teaching harmony to the kids. And then David was in love with mariachi music. So most of our songs had the mariachi style in them. And the choir kids loved it, and so did the people in our church. So it worked out really well. And they liked it so much that about 4 years ago, a parent from one of our choirs who was involved in his community and was working with an organization called Educator, Familia, he came up to David, my son, and my son was in his early 20s back then. And he asked him if he would be interested in starting a mariachi program. He said that there would be no funding available, but he insisted that the city of San Juan Capistrano and the city of San Clemente were having major problems with gangs. So he said that a program like this would help keep the kids off the streets. So David liked it, and he asked his family if we would be interested in helping him start the program. So we had no idea how to do this, and we thought that it would be really hard to get random kids off the streets interested in learning how to play mariachi music. Had it been rap music, it would have been easier, right? So we thought that at the most we would have 8 or 10 students, to start with. And then we thought, well, maybe it wouldn't be too bad. Starting a program that small. So we prayed, and we said, okay, let's do it. So that summer, we planned out a program. We called it the Capistrano Community Mariachi Program, CCMP. And then we set up the registration date. Well, the first day of registration, it was a Saturday, and we were shocked. There were over 40 students enrolled that first day. The next day, because we did it only one weekend, at San Felipe de Jesus, there were another 50 plus students enrolled. Wow. And that's when we realized that in fact, the community needed this program. They wanted it, they needed it. And there they were, all these 90 plus students, young and old, ready to learn mariachi music. And here we were, just the three of us, David, Carmen, and myself, with no funding, no instruments for them, and no place to practice in. So we were frantic. And I don't think I remember a time that I played the most since that day. Yet 3 weeks later, we began our classes in the open air on the concrete bleachers of the Stoneville Park in San Juan Capistrano. We attempted to teach music theory with a loudspeaker and music notes written on huge chart papers so that everybody could see. It was crazy. Soon, the surrounding neighbors got fed up with it. And before the month was over, we were out of there. But the next week, there we were again. We held practice on the bleachers of another local sports field. And as the winter approached, it became harder and harder to teach as the evenings got darker and darker. So we asked the kids to use the back of the metal bleachers as music stands. We asked them to take their music on the stand so that they could see the music and play their instruments. And we asked the parents to hold up their lanterns and flashlights so that students could see the music in the dark. Of course, we prayed and answered. Finally, after almost 3 months, God responded. We were granted the use of 3 beautiful dance rooms in J. Center Catholic High School, which is the place where we hold practices right now. 1 year later, with the help of God, we developed our first performing youth group, Mariachi Capistrano, who that following summer made their first public presentation at the Orange County Fairgrounds in Costa Mesa. At the end of the second year, we developed our second youth group, mostly preteens, which is called Mariachi Corazón de Capistrano. And they too, their first presentation was done at the Orange County Fairgrounds in Costa Mesa. And since then, these 2 beautiful groups have been doing numerous presentations all over Orange County and LA County. They have participated in several mariachi competitions and have attended several international mariachi conferences. But more important, these kids are now giving back to our community. They serve as role models. They make presentations at many community events such as schools and churches. And they perform for events sponsored by nonprofit organizations such as the American Cancer Association. And it is beautiful to see how God works. Let me tell you why. At the program, some of the kids, knowing that we had a youth choir at San Felipe de Jesus, they began asking me if they could join the choir. I mean, that would be backwards. The choir kids wanted to join the mariachi. It was the other way around. The mariachi kids wanted to join the choir. So as a result, my son David saw the need to teach our performing mariachi groups how to play the mass. At first we thought that the parents from CCMP would object, us including religious songs into our program, but they didn't. And we thought of that because we have children from different beliefs. But that didn't happen. What happened was that parents and their families began to join us while our mariachi performers played for Mass. So I thought that was pretty neat. I realize now that it is never our doing. I realize that we're only small little instruments in His hand. I realize that everything that we do really does come back tenfold. And, as my husband and I are experiencing the empty nest syndrome, we rejoice with the gift of seeing our own children respond to the need of our community. And we also rejoice seeing so many children and youth become leaders, well-rounded individuals with really high self-esteem, not only performing mariachi songs, but also praising God through their voices and instruments as they play in Sunday Mass. And all I have to say is that I don't know why things happen, and I don't know why sometimes we're put up with opportunities to help others, and we either say yes or we say no. And if we say no, we're left behind wondering what would it be like had we said yes. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No? Yes.
I know every year you do a fundraiser. You usually have a dinner here
Yes.
in the fall. Why don't you put it into the bulletin so that more people at St. Edward's Parish here know about it? I came 2 years ago when I think I was the only gringo in the building, and my girlfriend came with me. I got her to it too. But I found out about you guys accidentally because I was someplace, and then I went to you always, it's the little restaurant.
Carlos place? Yes.
He always does little things for you. And so I did go to dinner one night, for that reason. But I think you should put in bulletin that
Thank you for asking. The fact is that we have our full-time jobs, and there's no time to do all the marketing that needs to be. And as simple as that, as simple as putting an ad in the church's paper or bulletin, as simple. There's so many simple little things, and there's so many simple little things that we don't have time because we are working full time. And so this is extra that we're doing. And so, we need volunteers. You need to be in an advisory board. CCMP is a non-profit 501c3 organization, and so we have our advisory board, we have our executive board, and so we're always asking, who wants to join, and we really do need people's advices and help and support. So thank you so much for asking. I hope to see you. Any other questions? Yes.
Rosa, could you just briefly describe how the children connect the music and the excitement about the music to their faith and to the church?
Oh, I have to share, and now you got me talking, but one beautiful experience is, remember that we started the choir way back when, and we saw these kids from 5 years, and now they're in college, practically, right? And one day, one of my parents in the choir, in the pioneer choir, called me and she was crying. And she says, I have to share this text message that my son sent me when I see you at church next week or Sunday. And I was curious, so she came up to me and she was still crying. And I go, well, what is it? What happened to him? ¿Qué le pasó a Chris? His name's Chris, and he's going to the University of Maine in Maine. This is his last year. As a matter of fact, he's graduating this year. And she said, look, he says this is his first year in college. The snow, the loneliness, the stress from school, being away from the family. I mean, he'd been in choir with us since 5 or 7, I think. And she said, read it. And then I said, Mom, the only thing that keeps me going is this song. And he practically texted a song from church. Okay, el Señor es mi pastor, nada me falta, en verdes praderas me hace reposar. And here he was texting the entire song, and she says, Rosa, don't you ever stop, directing our choir, because our kids, you don't think it makes a difference, it does make a huge difference. And so that was very touching.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So this all started with your 9-year-old as God's. Is this child now running like a big conglomerate now?
her master's in Germany in the University of Cologne as a music performer. And I'm going to take this opportunity, I don't know if it's legal or not, to ask for prayers. She's going through a tough time with loneliness and depression. And since we've been so close, knitted in our family, being away from the family like that is extremely hard for her. But she's said that, and you know what she carries in her viola case? Okay, when we had the children's choir, we take pictures. Well, in one of the pictures, she has Father Abelino, which was, our priest that was with us at that time, with a group of children from the choir, and we had a grandma, one of the chorus grandma, that would always come, and she's passed away now, would always come to choir practices, and so my kids would call her grandma too. So her picture shows our new grandma and Father Abelino and all the kids from the choir, and she says, "Mom, when it gets hard, I pull this picture, and this is my motivation. I'm coming back to these kids, and I'm going to teach them, and I'm going to work with them, because I want them to feel what I feel when they play for God." And that, it's wonderful.